From President Gerald Ford's pardon of Richard Nixon and Carter's pardon of all Vietnam draft evaders to more recent pardons of those convicted who have personal ties to a president such as Trump and Biden, it seems that the pardon power is unchecked under the legal system. But it's Professor Kim Wehle, who is a professor of law. Her latest book is Pardon Power: How the Pardon System Works and Why. To explain all of this to us, Kim joins me now. Thanks for being with us, Professor. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
One word of history. So the theory behind the pardon, as you write in the book, is mercy. It's an act of forgiveness. Why did founders Hamilton, Madison, why did they fight so hard to put this in the hands of a president rather than involving the Senate? It seems like that would not be what people who wanted to avoid a king would want to do.
Exactly. And there were framers that made that very argument that if we put this in the Constitution, the president can become a king. But remember, back then in 1787, there was not a well-established federal criminal legal system. There were no constitutional rights for defendants. The Bill of Rights didn't come for a few more years. And so the framers were concerned that there could be miscarriages of justice, that people could get convicted and put to prison, in prison for too long. And there needed to be a steady hand in the room, the president, not a committee like Congress, but a single person who can exercise judgment to make sure the system is fair.
You know, I said in the lead-in to you that many see this as an unrestricted power. You write in your book it's actually not unrestricted. It's only for the federal system, and it can't be used in impeachment. But here's the thing. The question which you raised, which I think is so important, which is to say, other than the check on the power, isn't this more about the fact that there's no consequences for a pardon that a president issues? And really, we ought to be thinking about that. As you write, if there's no speed camera and there's no ticket for speeding, you might as well speed. So it's more about putting a look at incentives for doing this?
Exactly. That is everything with the law, as you know, the Constitution, to a stop sign in your neighborhood. If there aren't consequences for violating restraints on power, people will violate restraints on power. And the pardon power for a long time has operated as an unchecked power just because no one has issued tickets for speeding. And now we're finally having the conversation, and given the immunity case over the summer where the Supreme Court majority created immunity for presidents when they commit crimes, now that pardon power is even more potentially dangerous because presidents can pardon co-conspirators, can pardon accomplices to committing crimes in the Oval Office. So we're in a different day than we were even a few months ago prior to that immunity ruling when it comes to that massive pardon power.
You went to exactly where I wanted to go. I mean, literally, a president could say to somebody, here, go do this. That might violate the law, but they can't get me for what I'm saying to you because I'm president right now. And whenever you do it and they catch you, I'm going to pardon you. So we're good. It sounds like obstruction of justice.
Absolutely. And I think there's been a question as to whether a president can self-pardon up until this summer. But now even that goes out the window. There's nothing to self-pardon if you can't actually be criminally prosecuted as president. And it's that official power that we should worry about. It's committing crimes using the power of the FBI, the Department of Justice, the U.S. military, the IRS, the CIA. That's the tricky stuff. And that's the stuff that the Supreme Court put above the law. And I think you're right. The pardon power carves out this major hole in our separation of powers, in our notion of accountability for people in power. And it's a real problem. Absent a constitutional amendment, we probably just have to make sure we elect people with integrity to the highest office of the land.
Yeah, and an amendment is probably not likely to happen. Now, most pardons are supposed to be specific to a person. Let's talk about a couple of exceptions, how this gets pulled out. For example, Joe Biden pardons his son Hunter, but he didn't just pardon him for the crimes that we've read about that he's been convicted for. He gave him this like 10-year window in there. So what is your view on that? A president who pardons somebody who says, and by the way, let's just look at this window of time, and it might have been 10 minutes. He might have said for your whole life. Nothing stops that.
Nothing stops that, and that precedent was probably set by Gerald Ford when he pardoned Richard Nixon, not just for the crimes relating to Watergate that were already in an indictment, which was never actually, of course, issued out of a grand jury, but anything within a certain time period. Gerald Ford pardoned Nixon. It wasn't in a Supreme Court case that was allowed, but then you have a new precedent, kind of historical precedent. Joe Biden, I think, piggybacked on that, probably out of concern that the incoming President Trump could use the Justice Department to go back back and comb over the record and go after his son. I think many fathers would probably not want to see that happen.
Yeah, and the other way that we extend this sort of beyond the specific person, Jimmy Carter pardoned all draft dodgers back in the Vietnam War. Although you point out in the book, you got to go to Lincoln if you really want to find out when a group of people, in his case, Confederates, were pardoned. But is that what the pardon power is intended for, too? Just this whole group of folks?
Well, you could make the argument that is a mercy pardon in a sense, but that tends to be under the category of amnesty. And the idea is that a president can move the country forward and put something in the history books. The idea Lincoln wanted to move the country into Reconstruction and heal from the Civil War. Carter wanted to move the country post-Vietnam, and some say he paid a political price. So I make the argument that amnesty pardons, particularly for presidents who could serve a second term, actually do have political accountability in a way that individual pardons at the end of certainly after a two-term president do not.
And Kim, just about out of time, but I do want to ask you about this. Lots of talk about January 6 folks getting pardoned, and a lot of the people like the January 6 committee that they should be pre-pardoned before they do anything. Isn't part of getting a pardon the acknowledgement that you've done something wrong and you have to accept the pardon? Or can a president pardon you no matter what you think?
Yeah, I mean, you can reject a pardon. That's clear under the Supreme Court case law. There's some language about it in admission of guilt. But of course, Paul, there have been pardons after people have passed away where there has been a miscarriage of justice. Racially motivated criminal convictions, there have been pardons after the fact. I don't think anyone would argue that's an admission of guilt. It's actually the opposite. But I do think we got to buckle our seats for some pardons, both under Joe Biden potentially and under Donald Trump in the coming weeks. The pardon power is at the top of the news feed.
Professor Kim Wehle, your book couldn't be more timely. The book is called Pardon Power: How the Pardon System Works and Why. For more information, check out social media or KimberlyWhaley.com. Thank you, Kim.
Great to be with you. Thank you.